Hi, I'm Kyle with Biller Genie, and thank you for taking the time today to learn a little bit more about Biller Genie and what we can do for your business. In today's demo, we're going to walk you through all of the core features and benefits and show you how Biller Genie works behind the scenes to automate invoicing, improve cash flow, and allow you to keep your integration with your existing accounting software, whether that be any version of QuickBooks or zero. So I'm assuming that you're coming to this demo today because you got a link from one of our partners. And if that's the case, make sure that when this demo is over, you follow up with that partner to get more information and get set up with Biller Genie. With that being said, I don't want to waste any of your time today. We're going to keep this short, and we're going to show you exactly what you need to understand in order to evaluate Biller Genie as the right solution for your business to do invoicing. Let's dive into the demo. Biller Genie is an accounts receivable automation platform, with that being a fancy word that simply means we help businesses get paid faster on their invoices. Now, we work behind the scenes, we use automation, we integrate with QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks Desktop, and Xero. And of course, I'm going to be referencing QuickBooks throughout this demo because that's the most common one. First and most importantly, one of our core principles is to not change how you do business. Therefore, you continue all business processes in QuickBooks, and Biller Genie works as your AR assistant in the background. We are going to show you how to set up Biller Genie initially to provide that automation layer that connects with QuickBooks and with your payment processing account to ensure that your invoices are going out on time, reminders are being sent, and ultimately you are getting paid faster. That's what this is all about. So let's dive into some of the features and show you how it all works. Biller Genie keeps the data in sync with QuickBooks from a bi-directional sync that runs every day 24/7. For example, a new invoice or a new customer that needs to be pulled into Biller Genie, as well as information like new payments that have been made through Biller Genie that need to be sent and reconciled into QuickBooks. All of that happens automatically on a regular basis. So what happens when we do the initial sync and pull all that data for the first time from QuickBooks? Well, long story short, we're just going to pull the information that we need and no more, no less. So we're going to start with customers, and we're going to pull all of the customer records from QuickBooks into Biller Genie. We sync fields like customer name, contact information, email addresses, all so that we can effectively send out those invoices to get you paid. Now, the next thing we're going to pull in is going to be the invoices. So let's take a look at that. We pull in all of your open, unpaid invoices from QuickBooks. Now, what that means is we only pull the invoices where we're trying to collect payment. So if you have invoices in QuickBooks that are a different status, like pending, or it's an estimate, or previously paid, we don't pull those invoices in. We're not trying to get those invoices paid. So it's important to understand all of this data is going to live in your accounting software, of course. And then Biller Genie only comes into play when you have an invoice that needs to be paid. So that's the data that we pull in on the initial sync. One of the most important questions that gets asked about this initial process is how labor intensive it is, how much work you have to do, and the short answer is nothing. So it's very important we're talking through this. You understand that you're going to click a button which is going to take you into your QuickBooks account to get that integration set up by logging in, and that's it. We're going to take care of pulling all of the data from QuickBooks into Biller Genie that we need in order to send your invoices out and get you paid. Then, once that's established, we are going to continue with that sync in real time with QuickBooks. So we are going to take care of all of this. This is an automated process of getting this data from QuickBooks. You don't have to lift a finger. You don't have to do any data entry work. This is something that we set up that's an automatic sync with your QuickBooks, and if you're using one of our other accounting softwares that we work with. Now let's take a look and see what actually happens as you go into your normal accounting software and create an invoice. What does that do inside Biller Genie? First thing is you go into the accounting software and you create an invoice just like you would today. You go in and put the line items in, and then at the bottom, instead of clicking Save and Send, you're going to click Save and Close. Now, you may already be doing that if you're using some sort of other payment solution for your processing, but you're going to want to make sure that you click Save and Close. Now, when you click that, that's going to push the data into Biller Genie, and it's going to let our software know that there's a new invoice that's been created and it's unpaid. It's going to sync into our software, and then once it comes over to our software, the next thing that happens is we are going to send that email out based on your settings. Now, these emails are something that you can work with our team to customize. And this is a great feature of Biller Genie because your clients are going to see your logo, they're going to see your color scheme, they're going to see your branding. You can even put custom text on that invoice so that these invoices are truly your invoices that are going out to your customer. They are going to receive those invoice emails automatically once you hit save and close on the invoice in QuickBooks or your other accounting software. So let's take a second to recap. First thing you did is you went into your accounting software, you created an invoice, and you saved it. That brought the invoice into Biller Genie. You have already customized your emails, the verbiage, the logo, the color scheme. Biller Genie then automatically sends that invoice out to the email for your client, and then you can see what the email looks like right here. We've got all the verbiage that you had in there, the color scheme, the logo. We can have a link that they click to view and pay the invoice. So let's say they look and see what the customer experience is like. They're taking a page that looks just like this. You can see across the top the information that's there. You can also see a link to view the invoice. If they click that, they are going to be taken to a PDF file. That's something that the clients love to have because they can download the PDF, they can save it, they can print it, they can file it away however they want to. It's all for their accounts payable, right? Now, as far as actually making the payment, we provide them with both credit card processing options, ACH options, and even check options. But remember, all of that is something that you work out with your credit card processing company, the company that sent you the link to this demo for the first place. So talk to them more about the specifics of whether or not you're going to have ACH processing set up, credit card processing, all of that. Regardless of which payment processing options they choose, they're going to be able to come to a very simple web form like this one. We're going to load in all of the information that we already have from QuickBooks for their customer account, and then they put the information and then click to pay. Now, once they click to pay, that payment is going through your payment processing company, and then we have an integration set up on our side as well so that the payment processing company instantly lets us know that the payment was completed. Now let's go back into Biller Genie and see what happens once we get notified that a payment was approved and completed successfully on one of those invoices. The first thing that happens once the invoice has been paid is Biller Genie is notified by the payment processor that the payment was approved and authorized. That's so that we're going to send out that second email to the customer, and it's going to look a lot like the first one that they received. However, this one is going to let them know that the invoice is paid. They have the little button at the top they can click to view the invoice. If they click on that, they're going to see a PDF copy of the invoice with a big red stamp that says paid. Again, they may want to download that and keep that for their records. Now, there's also a bottom selection to the email, as you can see here in Biller Genie. You can edit that to say whatever you want. Might be a great opportunity for you to add some promotions or some kind of last shot at your customers to get them to understand your services that you provide, or other ways you can benefit them. Now, once all of that is done, what is Biller Genie going to do inside of QuickBooks? Well, let's take a look at that. Once these two emails have gone out, you know that the payment has been made. And again, keep in mind at this point, you haven't had to do anything other than set up these emails one time to say this is what I want my email to look like when it sends the invoice, when I confirm that the invoice was paid. So you do that once and then that's automated. So you haven't lifted a finger yet. Now we go into your QuickBooks account and we mark the invoice as paid, and of course those funds undeposited, right? They haven't hit your bank account yet, so we do all of that for you in QuickBooks. Everything there is fully automated. One final step is we're going to send an email notification to you or your team so that you're notified Mr. Smith has paid invoice number 1009, and this has been paid because it happened behind the scenes in the background. You didn't have to do anything. So we want to make sure and notify you that the payment was made. Now, one of the most popular features that really became more popular lately is this idea of passing on some of the cost of accepting payments to the customer when they pay the invoice. This is a way that you can offset some of the payment processing costs and increase your revenue a little bit based on what type of payment processing method your customer is using. So let's take a look at that feature and show you how it works. So before we dive in and look at exactly how this particular feature works, I do want to bring out that this idea of adding fees to card transactions or increasing the price of one payment method versus another is a highly regulated topic. Regulated by Visa rules, MasterCard rules, state laws, regulations, all of those things. Biller Genie provides these features to you at the request of our clients, at the request of our payment processing partners. But I would really encourage you to work with your payment processor, the company that got you into this demo in the first place. Ask them about what programs they have available, and then work with them to mirror that program in our system, if available to you. Now, of course, all you have to do if you don't want to implement this on our invoice is do nothing. Just leave it the way it is. It already says no, but if you toggle it to yes, then you're going to need to work with your payment processing partner to identify the right percentage once activated. Then when the initial email goes out with the invoice, what's going on is they're going to see from the initial email that there is one price that they're going to pay if they're going to pay with card, and then there is a lower cost that they're going to pay with ACH. Now, one of those things that we're proud of is that when we do this program, we preserve the integrity of the invoice that you created inside of QuickBooks. We're not going in and retroactively trying to change the total amount you're invoicing to them. What we're doing instead is we're adding this technology fee, so that the technology fee is a separate line item on the invoice. So once the customer pays, when we go into QuickBooks and mark that invoice as paid uncollected, we're going in to add the additional technology fee to the invoice in QuickBooks. And that way, it's going to be much easier to reconcile. We don't change total amounts, for the invoice or anything like that. The line items, we just change the total amount that was actually paid by adding in the technology fee as a line item. And that'll also make it much easier to reconcile with the bank account once that deposit comes through the payment processor. Okay, so now here's what's interesting though. That feature is a great example of a global feature. There's many things like this that you can tweak and change, late fees, notifications, all of that at a global level for all of your customers. But as we all know, many of our customers want to be treated a little bit differently. Maybe there's a special request that you have, so let's dive in and take a look at the customizations that we can do per customer in order to make their experience specific and what they want. So let's go to our customer list here. We'll click on Michael Rankin, and we're going to click on Advanced Options. And one of the first things you'll notice is the technology fee. Now, even though this is a default for all customers have it turned on, which we just did, we can actually toggle that off for this particular customer. Maybe it's one of your oldest and most dear customers, maybe one of our most loyal customers, maybe they just have a real problem with the technology fee. We can just turn that off for this individual customer. One of the other great things you can do is have certain payment options that are available to one customer, but not the other. A very common example of this would be a client of yours, a customer of yours who's consistently using ACH and it's getting declined. Well, ACH, you don't find out about the payment being declined usually for 2 or 3 business days. Keep in mind that an ACH payment that has been processed can take those days to settle or clear. So with a credit card payment, Biller Genie is able to immediately, instantly mark the invoice in QuickBooks paid because we know that the credit card transaction went through and you're gonna get that money. With ACH, it doesn't work quite that way. There's that 2 to 3 day lag where an ACH goes to a person's bank account and then the notification gets sent back that the transaction was cleared. And so with Biller Genie, keep in mind that the invoice is going to remain unpaid. You can enter it in Biller Genie, of course, and you can see all the records of the transactions, but until that transaction actually clears the bank account, it will remain unpaid. Then, once the transaction is cleared, it will get posted in QuickBooks as paid. But you'll know that when an invoice is paid, that means you are getting the money. You can actually just toggle off the ability for them to pay via ACH, and then they no longer have that option available. You could, of course, do the inverse with cards and say they're not allowed to pay with cards, they're only allowed to pay with ACH. One other one I'll highlight here is the ability to do partial payments. So sometimes we have people where you want to send an invoice and allow them to make a partial payment. You can toggle that on for individual customers. And as you see here, there's a few other advanced options that we won't get into right now. Now the next one I want to show you here is the auto pay options. So Biller Genie is able to securely store payment methods. This is one of the great things about our solution. You can actually work with individual customers and set them up on auto pay. And so once you have an authorization form for them, you can just toggle this on or off. And now that you have a payment method on file with them, their invoices that are being created in QuickBooks will get marked paid right away. So rather than sending out an invoice to say you need to pay the invoice, it's going to be an email that sends out to them and lets them know that an auto pay has occurred. So let's take a little bit more of a look at this feature. So there's basically just 2 parts to this idea of the auto pay. The first one is the payment method, and as I mentioned, we can store that payment method. You may have noticed it on the earlier screen where the customer went and clicked to pay via credit card. there was actually a checkbox there where they could store that payment method. What that does is it securely stores that cardholder information or bank information for ACH, and it stores it securely to the cloud. So you won't be able to see it, nobody else will be able to access it, but it's stored and tokenized at the gateway level. But you'll be able to process it. And then the other part of it is the timing of the auto pay. So there are several different times or dates that we can run that auto pay. We can run it on the date that it's created. So as soon as you create the invoice and save it and it sends to the customer, it's going to be automatically billed the payment method on file. Or you could do it on the due date, okay? So when you create the invoice, you're going to have a due date. So we'll put that invoice in, but we'll not say, well, we're not gonna pay it yet. We're going to wait until the due date, or you could have it on the invoice date. So there are all options that are available to you within your accounting software. And so you choose which one you want as far as when you want the invoice automatically paid for that customer. And so you choose which one you want here. We're going to go ahead automatically for you and send out those receipts and all of that. Now, what I want to dive a little deeper here is the sync and how we set this up in terms of how often we are updating the system, what we are sending out as far as invoices, the defaults, and all of that. So let's take a look at that section of the settings. One concern that some of our clients have when they first start working with Biller Genie is that we might send the invoices out too quickly. You know what we talked about, 3 to 4 minute sync. And so we're grabbing those invoices immediately and then sending them out when they're created. Now, of course, we're going to have the due date on there and all of that information, but some merchants don't like that. Some of our clients would prefer to kind of batch that and send out all of their invoices at one time. And so you might spend the last week of the month creating invoices, updating invoices, and then you want to send them all on the first. Well, you can just simply go here, you can toggle off that auto sync concept where they're sending it on create. And instead, you can do other options where they're sending it on the due date. And so by default, you can set these things up as far as that initial email that goes out, and you can customize that user experience completely, and they're only going to get those invoices when you want them to get those invoices. Now, one other really important thing to understand is that because we have this two-way sync, we're actually able to update invoices in our system as they're updated in QuickBooks. So let's say a customer reaches out and they dispute the amount on the transaction. You go in there and change the invoice amount in real time, and within those 3 to 4 minutes for the online versions, we're gonna be able to edit that invoice in Biller Genie as well as the new amount. And this prevents them from clicking on a link, paying the old amount. Instead, when they click on the link, it's going to go to that updated version. And so once we pull over that data, the next time we're gonna be updating all of that. Everything we've talked about so far are things that once you set them up correctly, as far as the settings go and all of that, there's very little for you to do inside of Biller Genie. Most of what you're going to be doing is working through QuickBooks, which is going to be automatically synced to Biller Genie. But what are some of the reasons that you might actually use our software and log in and do something inside of Biller Genie? Let's look at that. The first reason that you might come into Biller Genie would be when a customer reaches out to you and says something that no one ever says, and that's, hey, I didn't get my invoice, and that's why I didn't pay you, right? Now, a couple things about this. First of all, let me show you what you can do to actually find that customer, grab the invoice, and then click on Send Invoice so that you can just resend the invoice link manually. But what my favorite part about this is you can actually look and see if they actually got the invoice. So we track everything from when exactly that moment the invoice was sent, if the email was opened, what is the timestamp that they opened it, did they click the link, did they view the invoice? You have all of that information here. So when they say, oh, I never got the invoice, you can say, well, actually, I looked at the system here and I can see that you were looking at it last night at 10:27 p.m. You know, so that you have data if you want to use it. But of course, most of the time, you're just gonna have to resend that invoice, and then when you have them on the phone to help them save face a little bit, but make sure that they can get the invoice so that they can pay it. What if somebody walks into your office, or if they just call you over the phone and they don't really want to pay it online? So you've got them on the phone and they want to pay that bill while they're on the phone with you. How would you handle that? Well, let's take a look at that feature. So if you're looking at the invoice, what you can do is click Pay the Invoice, and there are several things you can do here. If they already have a payment method on file, maybe they're calling in over the phone. If they already have a payment method on file, maybe they're calling in over the phone and you can just say, hey, do you want me to go ahead and use your card ending in 3155 or whatever that may be? And you can just use the stored payment method that they have on file already. If they don't have a payment method on file, you can add one, and you can add a new payment method file for them securely. Or the final option would be, if you want some type of actual card reader or where you can physically run a card, we do have one available that integrates with Biller Genie software that you can use that to bring card information in if you have them in the office and cards present. And again, you can reach out to your credit card processing provider to request that swiper that will integrate with the Biller Genie system. So even in those situations, remember, we're still sending out the receipts, we're still sending out the notifications, we're still doing all of that no matter how they are paying the bill. Now, at this point, I have described to you a pretty fantastic software. It's a lot of information, but it really, at the end of the day, there's very, very little work for you that you need to do. We are going to work with you to streamline your entire process. So the question you're probably asking is, what is the investment in order to get this software set up and integrated with QuickBooks and my payment processing company? Of course, you're going to work with your payment processor as far as the credit card processing and the different costs and investments associated with that. But using Biller Genie to bring that credit card processing together with your QuickBooks account and send out the invoicing, as I've shown you today, we make that available to you. I'm going to talk right now about what those prices look like so you understand your investment moving forward. All of the features that I just showed you, we make available for $24.95 per month on a month-to-month agreement. There's no long-term contracts or anything like that. We find that once someone starts with Biller Genie, we just aren't worried about cancellations because you're integrated into your accounting software and it's so convenient and dramatically increases your ability to get paid faster. So if this is something you'd like to move forward with, the next step is very simple. Just reach back out to the person that provided you with this link. Let them know that you would like to move forward with Biller Genie, and they will help you get set up with your account. But we also have a full support team here at Biller Genie. And so once you work with them to get everything rolling, to get the account started, you're going to be connected directly with our full support team. We're going to work with you and make sure that your integration is smooth. We'll make sure that your account is set up correctly and that all of your customizations are specific to your business so that both you and your customers have a fantastic experience. You know, being able to get these invoices, have multiple payment options, and of course, for you to get paid faster, I hope that you'll take the time to consider Biller Genie. And again, we look forward to working with you. I hope you have a great day. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video.